podcast world, fellow horticulturists, lovers of plants, gardeners, family, and friends. Welcome to Shrubby Buddies, the podcast, friends with woodies for garden goodies. I'm host Matt Guthrie.
And I'm host Tim Fleischer, coming at you from Central Ohio, Zone 6B. We're just a couple of public horticulturists and certified arborists with experience in education, landscape design, gardening, retail, and wholesale.
So grab a drink, polish your pruners, dust off that kneeling pad, and let's get down to business. Hey, Shrubby Buddies, and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I am Matthew C. Guthrie I, joined with Timoteo Tanto Fleischer. Timmy, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for that little Spanish there. I like that.
Yeah, I learned that today. And Tanto means goofball.
I like it too.
So, yeah, you are a goofball.
Tanto.
So, what's been going on, buddy?
Let's see. The weather's been nice. It's been warm. We could use a little rain, but
yeah,
nice. Feels nice on the skin.
It has been warm and sunny, a little windy late last week. We had a little bit of rain.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been beautiful.
It has. And
perfect spring weather.
And today's Earth Day.
Yeah.
So, at work, you planted 50 trees.
Whoa.
So
I didn't.
Wait. That's pretty cool that you planted 50 trees on Earth Day. That's something a lot of people can say.
I did not plant 50 trees.
What do you mean?
I facilitated the planting of 50 trees.
I forgot about that.
With a group, what was it? Make Ohio Beautiful.
Yep.
And they provide the trees and everything and the projects for corporate groups. So we did a group planting with Wendy's corporate group. So Wendy's headquarters is located in Dublin, Ohio. So there was about 25 volunteers from Wendy's HQ.
Yeah, I called it the Dave's Double with Fries volunteer event.
Yeah, but wouldn't you know the lunch they provided for us was Subway, not Wendy's.
They're probably sick of Wendy's. I didn't want to bother those people with silly questions, but I wanted to ask as someone who works at Wendy's HQ, do they get some lifetime, or at least while they're working, they get some card that
I would have.
It's here's my free combo meal through the drive-thru.
I bet you they get free food while at work.
While at work,
maybe.
Is there a Wendy's restaurant in the HQ?
There's gotta be, right?
I heard there's a Frosty machine when you walk in.
That
you just help yourself to a Frosty.
That's perfect. So. You get some French fries to dip in there.
Yeah.
Now we're talking. Maybe some nugs on the side. So so we did that for Earth Day. Planted a bunch of trees. What did I have going? What else has been going on? This past weekend I helped my mom and dad at their place up at on Catawba Island in Lake Erie. We hauled out probably close to 10 tons of rock. The person that had lived there before had taken all of the soil out and replaced it all with rock around the house. So we took a bunch of rock out of the front, brought in, I don't know, between 8 and 10 cubic yards of new soil.
Maybe they had a rock fetish.
Must have. So we brought in that soil, and then I replanted a bunch of stuff for them. So we got the backbone of the landscape in for them, the shrubs and stuff. So now it's just a matter of getting some perennials. I have stuff in my mind, so we got to get the perennials in the ground next. So,
and you also hung up a piece of art that you made for your brother and sister-in-law's kitchen.
I did. Yeah, their eating area. I did a 5-foot by 5-foot preserved moss art piece, I suppose. It was a 5-foot by 5-foot canvas that I had made, and I'd been working on since this past winter. Finally wrapped that up, got that taken up to him, and hung.
It's mossy AF.
It's pretty cool.
It's gorgeous. You did a fantastic job with that.
I'm super critical of myself, but everyone that has seen it seems to really like it. I've actually had people reach out wanting to know if I could make them one and make them for people to give as Christmas gifts. So
you could use more things to do in your free time, couldn't you?
I know. Tell me about it. So not that I don't have a crap ton of stuff going on as it is. So so today's my wife's birthday. We've got this. She stayed home today and she was painting on her birthday because I don't know why, but that's what made her happy, and that's what she wanted to do. So.
She seemed to be in a fantastic mood when I came in today. She was just painting away, and it's her birthday, and I understand that. Getting some things done.
Yeah, for sure. I think she wanted to go golfing, but that didn't work out. So
why she couldn't walk to the golf course in your backyard?
I just think she wanted to go with her sister or something. But yeah, so she's been doing that. We got the house tour part right now because we're putting in new flooring. Kind of redoing the family room area, so the house is torn apart and in shambles. So I haven't been able to get outside and do a whole lot of work because I've been doing that stuff. But Tim,
hey Taylor,
Taylor's right here.
A guest just walked into the studio. This is Taylor Guthrie, Matt's wonderful wife.
Yeah.
How long have you guys been married?
Almost 6 years. It'll be 6 years in September.
Wonderful. Well, it's a big day for you. It's a milestone.
Yeah. So, was that all you wanted me to bring her down here for?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Tayday.com/awesome. Happy birthday to you.
Perfect. So we got.
You couldn't hear that, but I did the claps.
Yeah. So. All right. So yeah. So happy birthday, Taylor.
All
Love
right.
you.
I'm sorry. You're excused.
That's all right. So. Yeah, so that's what's been going on in our world. But like we talked about, today's Earth Day, April 22nd. And
wait a minute. I had one more thing to say.
Okay,
you reminded me when you said the date. So today's April 22nd.
Yes.
This episode drops this evening at 9 p.m. But most listeners get on it tomorrow, right?
I would,
the 23rd.
Yeah, most,
Yeah. And the 23rd is an important date because 1 year ago tomorrow,
we started this journey.
Was our first episode. April showers bring April flowers.
Yeah.
April 23rd, 2024. So
hopefully
it's our 1 year Annie.
Hopefully things have improved over the past year.
Yeah.
From episode 1 until now.
I hope so.
I don't know. Do you think so?
I don't know. I'm scared to listen to those old ones, or last year's ones. But
we've got better equipment.
Yeah.
We have a dedicated space now, which is nice.
Great studio.
And yeah, I think overall we're just more comfortable doing this.
Happy 1 year anniversary
to us.
Matthew C. Guthrie.
I love you.
Harder. +2.
+2. So anyways, back to that April 22nd, today's Earth Day. On this episode, what we thought we wanted to do was we wanted to do 9 plants each that we would plant on Earth Day. That we would, if like 9 plants that we were like, you got to go out and plant 3 trees, 3 shrubs, and 3 perennials. What are you going to plant for Earth Day? So we're going all natives with this. So it's the 3 trees, 3 shrubs, 3 perennials from each of us that we think make a big impact for Mother Earth.
Okay.
So I guess, and I don't know what Tim's list is. He doesn't know what mine is.
Right.
But
we made our lists in private.
Yeah, but before we get into that, because I almost forgot. Stigma anther pollen style. What's a bloomin' crocodile? Sorry, Tim. I almost forgot our weekly bloom report. So before we dive into the 9 plants each for Earth Day, we want to do the weekly bloom report. So Tim, take it away. What do we got in bloom right now, buddy?
Let's hit it. So I got the first thing I have isn't a bloom at all, and it isn't even a plant, but it's morel mushrooms. And we've been starting to find them more and more. Actually, I haven't found any the last couple days, but we've cooked some up at work, and I've cooked some up at home, and they're just, if you're not familiar, they're just a really delicious mushroom that has a very small window of time when it comes out, and it's not rare, but it's hard to find. They don't just grow everywhere. So you have to know where to find them, and you have to find them and cook them right, and they're delicious.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we found a bunch of grays. The grays are the smaller ones that come out earlier, and now we're kind of like into getting more into the yellows.
Yeah,
yellow
I found
morels.
those two end of last week, and I haven't seen any since then. So
The yellows get a little bit bigger than the grays do.
maybe we need a little rain.
They pop out, when the soil temperatures get a little bit higher. So
Okay.
yeah, I think with the mushrooms, what we're looking for is soil temperatures in that like 52 degrees and higher range for good morels. So yeah, but what else you got?
Good
so
stuff.
that's the grays and the yellows. That's awesome.
As far as trees go, some of the Ohio Buckeyes are starting to bloom. Some, I think it's shade and sun dependent, but some are just leafed out. But some have fully open blooms, and I noticed that just yesterday at Kiwanis. And the other tree that we haven't mentioned yet are crab apples, full bloom now.
Dude, they are on fire.
Last
right
week
now.
we could just see the buds starting to color up. This week they're colored up really nicely, and this is it for crab apples. Like these next 2 weeks, enjoy it, because after that,
Yeah.
not my favorite. But
No, not my favorite either. But when they're flowering, it's like, holy shit, this thing's crazy.
we saw that lovely soft pink one in the UDF parking lot of all places today.
Yeah.
We've been seeing a lot of the prairie fires, which is a real deep magenta pinks, and we've seen a lot of the whites. But that soft one, I don't know what it's called, but it was lovely.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Okay, and then a bunch of herbaceous stuff. I've noticed the wild geranium is blooming. Geranium maculatum at my house is. As far as wildflowers go, rue anemone, trout lily, toadshade trillium, and woodland phlox. Those are the spring ephemerals that I've noticed blooming.
Yeah.
In fact, I have some woodland phlox planted in my backyard, and it's starting to bloom, and it's really starting to creep around. So I highly recommend that one for a ground cover.
Cool.
To replace like a vinca.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. And let's see. Some other cultivated things that I've seen planted, Grecian windflower, snowdrop anemone, Brunera, or what's the common name on Brunera? Siberian bug gloss.
Yep.
I think I have the cultivar Jack Frost. Fothergilla is starting to bloom in my backyard.
I saw it at work today. Yeah, some blue shadows that I have planted at work were flowering.
And bleeding hearts, which are, we talked about the Dutchman's breeches last week. This is a cousin of that. At my house, they're blooming really nicely right now. And then the last thing on my list is, unfortunately, we're going to tell you about invasive stuff, is the lesser celandine. Has been blooming, and it still is. And it's a little yellow flower. It's in like moist woodlands, and it just carpets the place. And it's
over.
unfortunate, because I've seen, there's an area in Dublin that I've been watching the last 12 years, and there's an area where there used to be tons of bloodroot, and now there's very few bloodroot, and there's a ton of this. And it's like, well, why don't you just take care of it? Well, easier said than done.
Yeah, I had to
It's
go
a
out
carpet.
and spray some a couple years ago, and it was just like, holy crap.
Yeah,
it was
sucks.
never ending.
It stinks.
Yeah.
So
Never ending spray routine there. So
that's where we're at.
yeah.
So that's the weekly bloom report. Hopefully you get out and find some of these things, and maybe are inspired to add these to your garden.
Thank
Except
you.
for not the lesser celandine. Don't do that.
Yeah. Thank you, Timmy D.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, your pledge. So, all right, bloom report, cool. Now on to the main event, if you will. So, Timmy, let's start off with trees. Mm-hmm. 3 trees. Do you want to do a back and forth, or do you want to list your 3 and I list my 3? Let's do a back and forth.
Okay, we're gonna do a back and forth.
Okay, back and forth. You go first, and then I'll follow up with one.
Okay, so I formulated my lists on the premise that I can obtain anything. You know, it's a magic day, and I can obtain anything at the moment. And I tried to fill certain niches. So I'm going to just go with the obvious one with trees first, and I'm going to say redbud.
Okay.
And we've talked about redbuds a lot, so we're not going to talk about it too much. But I think that the flower show that a redbud puts on in the spring is just unmatched. And it's a native, and it's got so many flowers. It's great for the early pollinators.
Yeah.
So I think it's got a really great balance of being super duper ornamental, but also a really important woodland edge native tree. So
I like how you said super duper.
yeah, super duper.
Super duper. Yeah. So is that all you have to say about redbud?
Yeah, I mean we've talked about redbud like
I know.
constantly, so I don't want to beat the dead horse. It is such a lovely tree.
I'm not gonna lie, I had it on my list and was like, nah, we use it too much, and I know Tim's gonna say it, so I'm gonna keep redbud off, which I did. But the first one I have on my list is Cornus Florida, or our native white flowering dogwood. I didn't really think of this as, niches to fill, I suppose, but more just what I personally love that's native and that I feel does well for the environment and would be good for Earth Day. So Cornus Florida, white flowering dogwood. Here's one similar to where you would find a redbud growing, edge of the woods, kind of an understory type tree. In the landscape, maybe 15 to 20, 30 would be tall 15 to 20 or 25 foot tall tree. Yellow flowers surrounded by white bracts. Now, a lot of people think that the white bracts are actually the flower, and they're not. They're bracts. The flower is the yellow center of the dogwood bloom, if you will. But yeah, it's just an overall great tree. Really pretty, kind of, I don't know, blocky. How would you describe that? Scaly type bark. Red fruit in the fall that birds and the wildlife like to eat. It's real bitter to humans. I think I've even read that it's poisonous to humans. I can't confirm that for sure, though. Beautiful red fall color. Attracts butterflies, pollinators, bees, all of that good stuff in the spring. So,
and it's pretty endemic to the eastern United States. It's not like one of these things that is native to a small pocket in the north. I mean, it just runs up and down the eastern United States.
Yeah, and they're starting to flower now, so it's like a early to mid spring kind of flowering type thing. A lot of times they do overlap with the redbuds like they are now. So the redbuds in the Buckeyes, yeah. So. You could argue that it's the showiest and prettiest flowering native tree that we have.
Yeah, you can.
So,
especially when it's in full bloom it's getting just around the right amount of light, and it's just covered in those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good cultivars like redbud. There's a lot of good cultivars of the dogwood tree. So, yeah. So that was number one tree on my list.
Okay.
What do you got for number two?
So the niche I'm trying to fill with my second one is a tree that can be successful in full shade.
Okay.
And this is more of a medium-sized tree, and it's umbrella magnolia.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I was trying to think a little bit outside the box with this.
I didn't even go on the magnolia. My mind didn't even go down that path.
And I know why, because it's not native to central Ohio. We can grow them here.
Yeah.
But it's native range, the northern end of it is the very southern counties of our state.
Yeah.
So it does occur natively in the state. But it's a really cool magnolia. It's got very big leaves, really long, big leaves that almost look tropical. Yeah, and it just has this really neat open tropical habit. And the blooms on it are just big. They're just these big, long white petals. And the blooms, I mean, you got to look up to see them. They're not just like in your face as much, but they're really cool. Mm-hmm. They're really cool flowers. And then a little story with the umbrella magnolias is that Megan, my wife, did her first year of college at the Worcester campus of Ohio State, ATI. And her favorite thing to do was to go lay under the umbrella magnolia trees. There was a whole grove of them, and read and study and stuff. And so when I first met Megan, we're hort nerds. Like, instead of like, oh, like what do you like to do? It was just like, what's your favorite plant? Because we're nerds.
Yeah.
And I know her favorite plant was the umbrella magnolia because of that. And unfortunately, in 2010, an EF2 tornado ripped through that area and destroyed so many trees in the arboretum at that campus. And one of the things that they destroyed was these delicate umbrella magnolias. So,
yeah, what a bummer. Right?
Yeah, it's sad. But the thing, going back to my original point, is it's a tree that can grow in full shade.
Yeah.
It can grow full to part shade. It really doesn't want full sun, especially as you get further, especially as you get into the warmer parts of its native range. It needs, that cover. So
sure. Yeah.
So
very cool.
Lovely tree.
Yeah. Beautiful tree. So the next one on my list, I'm going to go with another slightly smaller tree that we have talked about in the past, and that's serviceberry or amelancher, early white flowers that turn to the red and then dark, almost black berries. The berries taste wonderful to humans as well as to birds, but the flower, when it's in flower, it's an attractant for pollinators. Then you have the bird side of it with the birds coming in for the berries and things. And it's just got beautiful fall color. It's tolerant of like air pollution, so it works well in cities and things. So yeah, so serviceberry was number 2 on my list there.
And we planted a few serviceberries today.
We did, yeah. Absolutely.
Those were multi. We did like multi, so they'll be more like multi-stem large shrubs than trees, but they are a tree. So
yeah,
and get first week of June, those berries, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
good stuff. So what do you got now for your final?
So the niche I wanted to fill with my final tree is just big. I just wanted to choose a big tree.
Okay.
I want to cover all the bases. So I chose chinkapin oak.
Ah, okay.
Would you have a big one too?
I do have a big one.
That's what she said. I chose chinkapin oak because I've always really liked chinkapin oak. I like the leaf shape. It's in the white oak family, so it has like a toothed margin, but they don't come to a real sharp point.
Mm-hmm.
And the word, I was doing some research, the name chinkapin comes from a word that they often call chestnuts.
Okay.
And some people call chestnut seeds chinkapins, maybe in different parts of the country.
Oh,
and the leaves resemble that of a chestnut.
They really do, yeah.
But you don't want to get that confused because there is also a chestnut oak that has very similar leaves. But I like the chinkapin oak for us because if you want a big, large oak, it's a very tough tree. Not tough to grow, but it's just a tough tree. So it grows here on like limestone slopes, the tops of the slopes. So dry, alkaline soils is where it likes to be. But it can tolerate pretty heavy drought and heavy clay soils. So I think it's an oak that can do well in a lot of places, and you can't say that for all oaks. It's hard to grow a pin oak in a super dry spot, perhaps, or red oaks can be more bottomland, or like swamp white oaks are more bottomland. But this oak affords a little bit more wiggle room to the soils you might have.
Yeah.
And it tops out in its native range at like 50 to 80 feet, probably more like 40 to 60 in the landscape. So, and very important for wildlife. Oak trees just have are a lot of species of insects and birds and mammals are dependent on oak trees, and they live a long time. So I thought it was an important one to add to the list.
Yeah, absolutely. And so my third tree was also an oak.
Let's hear it.
And well, I'm going to change it up though, because I had bur oak.
Okay.
So bur oak would be more, it's going to grow more kind of in open type areas, but it's still going to get that 60 to 80 foot tall and wide type range.
And has drought tolerance.
And has the drought tolerance. But I'm going to switch up from bur oak, and I'm going to say, off the top of my head, another big one for me would be the tulip tree or Liriodendron.
That's the one I thought you'd have originally.
Yeah. So here's another big native tree we don't see them right here in central Ohio in the wooded areas like you would if you go south of here, or if you go to eastern Ohio. I know Davie Woods in Urbana, Ohio has some very nice populations of tulip trees, but they get big. I mean, we're talking 150, 160, 170 foot tall in these settings where they're really climbing to reach to the light in a wooded setting. But they have these beautiful flowers on them that resemble a tulip, these like creamy yellow flowers with orange centers in them. Just absolutely beautiful tree. I would imagine that they do a lot for the wildlife. I don't know like that side of the tulip tree very much. If the flowers provide a lot for pollinators, I would imagine that they do. So
a native tree that blooms, I'm sure they've different things have adapted to, succeed with them.
But I like them. They're quick growing. They tolerate a lot of different soil conditions. They're really tough.
Mm-hmm.
If you want a fast growing shade tree on your property, and you have some room, give one of these a shot. But
they're fantastic. They're one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And a couple interesting things about the tulip tree is if you come from more of a forestry background or a lumber background, you refer to it as the tulip poplar or the yellow poplar, which I can't stand because, again, it gets back to common names. And it's called that because it doesn't have the strongest wood like a poplar, like a cottonwood might have.
Yeah.
But it is not related to cottonwoods.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get that confused. It's actually related. It's in the same family as magnolias, which is where you see that flower that resembles like a magnolia flower, but with different colors. So I just think that when you call it a tulip poplar, you're kind of comparing it to a cottonwood, which is a great native tree, but not
It's kind of trashy compared to
it's like a pioneer species, and tulip trees are not a pioneer species.
Yeah.
So,
and with all big trees, oaks like you talked about, and then the tulip tree like I just talked about, all of these big trees not only do they provide for the wildlife and stuff, but planted in your yard and in parks and things like that, they provide shade, which is going to cut down on the cooling cost. If it's around your house. They take in so much carbon, right? They're carbon tanks. They take the carbon in and they store it. They help with groundwater runoff, so they take in all of that groundwater. I mean, there's so many things about big trees. And one thing I'm going to plug in on the big tree thing, if you want to see kind of what the benefit of trees will do, if you go to iTree, I think it's iTree.com. They actually have a thing on there where you can do these tree nutritional cards. So think of like the nutritional label on the back of like a box of cereal that shows like calories and sugar and the vitamins and all of that stuff. Similar to that, what you do is you punch in the tree species, the height, the diameter at breast height, where it is in relation to your house, all of these things. And what it will do is it will actually spit back, this is how much this tree is saving you yearly on heating costs. This is how much groundwater it's taking up. This is how much carbon it's sequestering out of the air. So a really cool thing if you want to get nerdy like I do and learn about that, what these trees on your property are actually doing. So,
thank you.
Yeah,
thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That really ties up all the loose ends.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Whatever. All right, so those are the trees we got. Let's move on to shrubs. You want me to start with the shrubs?
Sure, give her a start.
Cephalanthus occidentalis, or our native button bush.
So we're only going to talk about 5 shrubs because I also have that one, and I'm not gonna. No, I like that you and I came up with the same thing. That's fantastic.
Okay, so button bush, you can hit on whatever.
You go first.
So,
it's yours.
Mid to late summer flowering. It gets these really cool white flowers on it that look like fireworks. It's a great, it'll do good in full sun, but it'll also do well in the shade. It likes moist soil, so you're going to find this more in the bottomlands and along rivers and streams and bodies of water and thing. Natively 6 to 12 foot tall, some of the cultivars will stay a little bit smaller, but I know when this thing's flowering, it is just a pollinator magnet. So,
it is.
And then I was reading online about it, and I didn't realize that the brown nutlets.
Mm-hmm.
I love that word, nutlets.
Me too.
So the brown nutlets that it will hold those on through the winter, but ducks and geese eat the seeds from the fruiting body.
Do they shit it out and then it like germinates?
I don't know
where
that.
They shat it.
I don't know about that, but what do you have to add to buttonbush?
Well, like Matt said, the blooms on it are mesmerizing to me. They're perfectly round, the way the flowers radiate from the center, and I think it's the style, which is one of the. It's a botanical term for some of the reproductive portions of the flower. Sticks out really far from the circle, so a lot of people call it the pin cushion because it looks like pins stuck in a pin cushion. Just love it, and you when it's in full bloom, you can't walk up to it and not see pollinators all over it.
I know,
butterflies,
that's what I'm
hummingbirds, tons of bees. I mean, the plant's moving. And I was fortunate enough a couple years ago to see it in its native habitat. There's a stand of it in a local state nature preserve here in central Ohio. And it was just really cool to see in its native habitat because the blooms were pretty, but like the plants were just like tall and old and super ugly, but it was like thriving. That's where it wanted to be.
Well, we have some growing along the side of a river in Dublin.
Oh, you'll have to show me that.
At Amberley Park. Right down along the river.
You'll have to show me. I've never been taken to this.
Yeah, if you walk down the kayak stairs and then turn to the left and go north up the river, there's
cool.
There's one or two nice. They're not huge, maybe 6-7 foot tall buttonbush that are growing right there. And I mean, this is like shitty limestone soil right along the river, where they're underwater probably half the year.
Yeah, and that's when I use it in a landscape. I try to purposely plant it in areas that are consistently moist and have standing water because I know it'll do great there. But we've also found it to have some drought tolerance. In fact, I've also planted it in areas where it gets no moisture throughout the summer and it does fantastic. Yeah. So cool. Pretty resilient little shrub and it's beautiful.
Yeah. All right. So since we both had buttonbush, what do you have for your number 2?
So I'm going to stay along the same lines of something that likes to grow near water, and I'm going to use bladdernut.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So bladdernut's always been one of my favorite shrubs to just discover when you're just somewhere and you've never been. There's bladdernut. I love that plant. I don't know why I love it so much, but I do. I love it. It's not uncommon, but since it's very specific that it likes to grow near a body of water, typically a river, you don't always see it. So I love bladdernut. The Latin name is Staphylea trifolia, and it has trifoliate leaves. It has leaves that have like 3 leaflets per leaf, and it has the seeds are in like a sack.
Yeah.
That it's 3-sided.
A little bladder.
Exactly, and it's full of air. Like you can pop it, and it has these perfectly round seeds in it. And what I think's cool about it is since it's adapted to grow near water, the thought is that these seeds fall off
and float
to a new location, wash ashore, and then a new stand of bladdernut can be formed. Yeah. And when it is happy, it's happy. Like it's one of those shrubs that can keep honeysuckle out. Like if you wanted to really have it sucker along a waterway, it'll do a great job keeping the invasives at bay.
Yeah. The best stand of it I've ever seen is I can't think of the name of the waterfall, but it's in Cedarville, Ohio. There's a waterfall down. It may be just called Cedar Falls. It's like a public park just outside of Cedarville, and the trail that runs along the river there, the top trail, there's a whole stand of it. It's literally like walking through a tunnel of bladdernut. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that too. Take me to these secret places.
Yeah, I mean, not really a secret, but yeah.
And the Chadwick Arboretum, which we walked through last year, when I was in school, the bladdernut I learned on was actually a single stem tree that was planted there. It was on purpose, and it makes a lovely landscape tree.
Yeah.
Small. It just it's hard to find that way.
Yeah.
Oh, and we need to mention the flowers, just clusters of small bell-shaped white flowers.
Yeah, the flowers are really cool.
That are beautiful.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Cool. So my number 2 is Viburnum dentatum, or arrowwood viburnum.
Love it.
This is one we've talked about before, but again, it's going to be similar in size to like the Cephalanthus or the buttonbush. 6 to 10 foot tall. Maybe some of the cultivars will stay a little bit smaller. You can keep these guys pruned, though, if you were to plant them ornamentally in the landscape. But in their native setting, they will get to be a pretty large shrub. Again, full sun to part shade. It's kind of an edge of the woods or even an understory type thing, but
super dense.
Dense, very dense. Kind of these green glossy serrated type leaves. That gets white flat topped flowers on it. Great for pollinators. The flowers aren't very fragrant by any means, not like some of the other viburnums, but
I think that the flowers, to me, smell like unripe or green banana.
okay.
So it's not especially like spicy and fruity, but it's not. It's almost a little more musky, but it's not off-putting to me.
Yeah, but not. I mean, it's not like you're not going to buy arrowwood viburnum and say, "Oh, these things smell amazing," like you would fragrant viburnum or something.
Mm-hmm.
But and then these flowers turn to these dark blue berries that wildlife love to eat. The flowers attract pollinators. The berries are for the birds. All of that good stuff. And then the fall color on them is just amazing.
Yeah.
These shades of red and orange and yellow and just all these different colors. So
it is. It's a great native shrub, and it gets its name arrowwood because the canes, the branches are super straight, like perfect to make an
arrow.
And what's the stalk of an arrow called?
A shaft.
Shaft.
A shaft.
I'm not a hunter, but that's why it's called arrowwood, because it has these perfectly straight, bendy shafts.
Oh, cool! I didn't realize that.
Now you know.
Yeah. So, all right, Tim, what's your last shrub?
My last shrub is our native spice bush.
Okay.
Do you have that one?
No.
Okay. I like spice bush for an Earth Day planting because it's a great one just to plant in the middle of the woods. Mm-hmm. You can plant it in the middle of a woods. It can be a wetter woods. It can be a drier woods. It's okay. It can tolerate drought really well, but it can grow in some more moist woodlands.
Yeah. No, dude. Yeah.
But we've talked about spice bush a bunch, but I just love it because it's like a breath of fresh air when you see it all throughout a woodlot and not honeysuckle. Mm-hmm. Because it can be pretty it can create some really dense thickets, but it's supposed to be there, and it provides so much for wildlife, specifically the spice bush swallowtail,
which we've talked about.
And something that when I was reading up on it today that I didn't realize is, so I did know that there's male and female plants. It's a dioecious plant, but the male flowers are the showier ones.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't realize that. The female flowers are showy also. It's like an electric yellow, but the male flowers are just there's just more to them, so they're bigger. But it is the females then that bear the fruits, which are like a red drupe fruit that you don't really notice until the leaves fall off.
An old drupe fruit.
I
like a drupe fruit.
So yeah, it's a great little. It's a great native, really spicy smell to it when you crush the leaves, the stem, the berries. So
didn't they call you drupe fruit in 6th grade?
7th
grade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
they did.
Yeah, I thought so.
All of them called me drupe fruit. I'm past that now.
Yeah. All right, so my last one is Calycanthus floridus, or our native sweet shrub, and it is now native to Ohio. What, you like that one?
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
Someone give it a clap.
So it's now native to Ohio because it was just recently found in Ohio.
Very important that they found that in Ohio, too.
I
think that's really important to note that, this wonderful shrub we use in the landscape, we can call it native to the eastern U.S., but now we can call it native to Ohio.
Yeah, Megan Fleischer, this is super important stuff.
Is that what you're getting at? I wasn't getting at that.
Oh, I was getting at that.
Okay.
So, yeah, our native sweet shrub, another big 6 to 12 foot or taller shrub, does well in full sun to part shade. natively it gets these red to reddish brown flowers, these 2-inch flowers. The cultivar Aphrodite is a more red than the native. There's even white flowering ones. Even before the flowering, I like these marble-shaped buds that it gets. It just loads up on these
So
big
cool.
marble-shaped red buds all over it, which are really cool.
Big, shiny, dark green leaves.
Yeah, it can colonize in a natural setting, and if you give it space to do so.
It's a very vigorous plant. It'll grow a lot for you.
But then it has these sweet-smelling flowers. I was reading at Missouri Botanical, and they described the flowers as a strawberry, pineapple, banana-smelling flower on it, and the leaves are even kind of have this spicy fragrance when you crush them. Same with the stems.
The scent of the flowers is unique because it's like it's hard to put a finger on what it smells like because it's not like it. You smell it and you're like, that's not the flower smell, but it's fruity and it's really nice. And
I think also it kind of varies a little bit from plant to plant.
Well,
some are going to be a little bit stronger than others.
That's what I was going to say. The cultivars don't smell as they give off smell, but not as much as just a straight species, because when you breed something like an Aphrodite for much bigger flowers, you're going to lose something. And what you lose is some of the smell.
Yeah.
But if you get your nose into like a straight species or a native stand, you can smell it from a distance. Whereas some of these cultivars, you got to actually
stick your nose up in there.
You got to stick your nose on the flower. So,
but man, what a great shrub! My neighbor's got one growing in full on shade, and it does great, and it flowers. And then we have them growing in wide open areas where it gets the crazy sun all day long, poor soils, and guess what? They still just kill it. So, plant some calycanthus, but that was number 3 on my shrub list for an Earth Day planting.
Fantastic. I think that's a lovely shrub list that we put together.
Yeah.
So
perfect. All right. And on to perennials.
So herbaceous things.
Yeah. Why don't you start with the
want
perennials?
me to start?
Okay. I do.
This one I specifically tried to choose 3 niches.
Okay.
For the plants. So I will start with the woodland niche. And I chose great white trillium for that. And gosh, this is a spring ephemeral that's here, is not blooming yet. It'll be blooming very soon. But I like it for its ability to just cover the forest floor when it's in bloom. And if you're familiar with trillium, this is the largest of our native trilliums, and the flowers are gigantic. And when you have a whole colony of this just covering the forest floor, it's picturesque. You just want to lay down in it.
Isn't it our state wildflower too?
It is our state, our state native wildflower.
Yeah,
exactly. Good point. And so the flower is bright white and it fades to pink as it senesces. The flowers stick around for quite a while. I mean, it's for a spring ephemeral, they do a lot of work in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So I think if I could just have anything to plant, this is something that I would want to introduce to a woodlot by the masses.
Okay, cool.
So,
yeah, very good. I like that. I didn't even think spring ephemeral. I was thinking more...
I know, and I was trying to think of different niches, and that was my woodland one.
You're so good.
That was my middle of the woods, full shade.
You're so clever.
So, no.
All of mine are like...
that's good. We need a little balance here.
So
let's hear one of your native prairie plants.
Echinacea pallida, or the pale purple coneflower. So this is a native kind of upland type species of flower. 2 to 3 foot tall, these just long hairy stems that produce these nice big 3 to 4 inch ray flowers. Unlike typical coneflower, purple coneflower, the flower petals really droop straight down, and then it still has that kind of orange coppery colored seed, cone on top of it, the seed head on top of it. But yeah, just a tough perennial that can take all kinds of different soil conditions. Drought is a pollinator magnet. It's a bird magnet for the seed if you let this stuff stand all winter. Insects will use the stems for nesting if you leave it up. So just, in my opinion, it's one of my favorite cone flowers. It's more delicate looking than the traditional cone flower, but yeah.
It really dances nicely in a prairie with with grasses.
Yeah.
That are about the same height, and it's just kind of in there, hidden in the grasses, and it's one of the most perfect pairings you can think of. And it is the quintessential flower that I feel is used in logos for like environmental situations or like save the bees situations. There's always a Echinacea pallida, like a side profile with those droopy ass petals. It's a gorgeous flower.
Yeah, so if you are in the market for cone flower, or you like cone flower and you want to get more in your garden, look for the Echinacea pallida. Like, it's still a stunner. You're probably not going to find it in as vibrant colors as you will the regular cone, the Echinacea purpurea, but nonetheless, it's my favorite. I love it. I have it planted at my house, and it's stunning.
And I knew you'd have an Echinacea on your list. So I wanted to put one on, but I omitted just because I knew
you knew
I knew
would.
You'd have one.
Okay,
so I don't want to double dip. So yeah. Any more info on the?
No,
you could go on for a while, couldn't you?
Yeah, but that is what it is.
So since Matt hit on a prairie plant, my prairie plant that I chose is compass plant.
Oh, okay.
Silphium laciniatum.
Okay.
And this thing's a boss, and I picked it because I just thought we needed a large one, and I really like Rudbeckia maxima for a large perennial, but it's not like native to the state enough for my list, so I went with compass plant, Silphium laciniatum referring to deeply cut leaves. The leaves are beautiful in their own right.
I love when the sun hits them and you're standing on the back, and it just creates this glow on the leaves, and then you get the shadows of the other plants. And
I mean, this is a plant that creates its own shadow. It maxes out at like 9. What would you say, like 9-10 feet?
Oh yeah, big.
And it's just like one or two single stems shooting up in the air, just watching over the prairie. And then they're topped with these beautiful yellow ray flowers. We probably talked about them during our ray flower.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Episode. But the reason it's called compass plant is because it orients its leaves to a north-south orientation where it can maximize sunlight but not get burned during the hottest parts of the day.
Oh, interesting.
So I knew it did that, but I did a little more research on why it did that. And so when we're at the midday, the hottest part of the day, the sun's hitting the edges of the leaf, and then in the morning and evening, the sun gets onto the face of the leaves.
Yeah.
And that's why it's called the compass plant, because
Cool.
it orients its leaves that way. But this thing's a boss in the prairie. If you see it, you'll know it.
Yeah.
So I love it so much.
Yeah, and I mean, ornamentally speaking, you could definitely use it. Like,
oh yeah,
if you have a small garden now, probably not. Nope. But you need a big perennial border.
You could do back of the border, or
you
could shoot it in like the middle. Shoot it up in the middle of like a cottage garden. It would work really nicely. And we mow our prairies in Dublin late winter, and I always like to mow that one at Post Preserve because I get to mow over the old compass plants, and it always just reminds me like that's something I have to look forward to this summer. Is those babies coming, and they're real photogenic on like a blue sky day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not only do you get that big yellow flower on the top, but just that chunky foliage is super cool too.
So great.
And sometimes it's hard to find that chunky foliage in a perennial.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that when I say chunky, like that chunky of a foliage. So, but those silphiums, they really fit the bill for that.
Absolutely.
So, next on my list is, man, I had 4 perennials because I was like, yeah, what do I want to do? But I'm gonna hit up Asclepias tuberosa, or our native butterfly weed. This is one for bee. So this is a later flowering, kind of smaller native perennial in that, I don't know, I would say 1.5 to 2 foot range, something like that. It gets these super bright orange to orange yellow flowers. There's actually cultivars out now that the flowers are pretty much yellow on it. But yeah, I mean, this thing is a pollinator magnet and is a food source for the monarch butterfly. And they hammer this thing, and there's always monarch caterpillars on it, and it's just a fantastic perennial. It will seed itself around some in the garden if you let it. You can collect the seeds off of it and seed them other places. It's just a great, bright orange, like mid to late summer flowering perennial that will just take the shittiest stuff you can throw at it. So
it does, and orange is often hard to incorporate in the garden. This is a really easy way to incorporate orange, and it's awesome from a distance. But it's also like if you get up close to any milkweed, the flowers, each individual flower that makes that whole flower head, are just so stunning. Like,
yeah,
it's like they're like little aliens. I mean, It's just out of this world.
It's a great plant. Yeah, it's a great plant. I've overused it at my house, I think, but I have a lot of butterfly weed here. But I do it just because I know how beneficial it is, and it's just hard to beat that bright color.
It is
pops.
It's unmistakable. So I like to play like the double nickel ID game when I'm driving down the freeway, which is like you're going 55 and you're trying to identify everything you're driving by at those speeds. And trees are pretty easy for me, but if I'm driving by and there's like a ditch and there's like all these yellow things blooming, a lot of things bloom yellow and it's hard to distinguish. But this one's like always, there's some butterfly weed, you know, and I mean, it's unmistakable. It's the only thing that's going to be like that in that setting. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, that's a great segue into my final perennial.
Okay.
Which is also a milkweed, but I chose swamp milkweed.
Okay.
And I chose swamp milkweed because I was trying to fill different niches, and this is the wet niche. And unlike the milkweed Matt just talked about, this one will not thrive in the droughty soils.
No.
In fact, I've had it in my garden at home, and it did great for a couple years, and then we kind of stopped with the supplemental water, and then it stopped growing.
Yeah.
It stopped coming back.
Yeah.
And that's fine. We had the cultivar ice ballet.
Yeah, ice
and
ballet.
I found that out of all the milkweeds that we use in the landscape anyways, this one has the most fragrant flowers. I don't know if it's a trick, but the ice ballet is a white flower, and it almost smells vanilla-y to me.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a mind trick because it's
it could
white.
Be.
But in its native habitat, it's a nice pink bloom.
Yeah.
Very similar to looks just like the blooms of the orange, but it's a taller plant, and it grows in wet areas. So
it's a great one.
Hence the name swamp milkweed. And just like the butterfly weed that Matt mentioned, it's the host for the monarch butterfly. So when we had one summer where we were rearing them inside in like a netted cage, and my daughter was naming them. That's the one that got all the eggs, and
oh, really?
That's the one.
Okay.
And now that it's gone, we don't get nearly as many. So,
bummer.
From my limited research, that's the one that seems to attract them the best.
Cool.
But
good little piece there.
Yeah, little nugget.
Little knowledge nugget.
So yeah, why don't you finish us off here with your final perennial, or two? You had four,
no,
so
I'm just gonna give you the final, and I'm gonna fill the grass niche.
I knew you would, and I wasn't gonna put a grass on here just because.
Well, what did you? So you want to know what my other one was?
What?
The one that I'm taking off of the list was Amsonia hubrichtii. Okay,
I considered it too, but just didn't.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you put a grass on it, but I wasn't willing to do it.
Okay. I put little blue stem, Schizocarium scoparium, and is another one. It's native. The more horrible the soil you can give it, the better it does. It seems like full sun, doesn't need the extra water, but the colors that you get is a warm season grass, so it's not really going to start to put its show on until later in the season when it starts to get hot and dry. But you just get these blues and greens and purples, and then you have the real pretty flowers on it that are kind of these like purpley bronze color, and then you get the seed heads, these creamy white, flowered seed heads. But yeah, just a great overall perennial for erosion, texture in the garden, pollinators, nesting, like you name it, this thing does it, So
and I'll just harp back on the colors you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
This, even though this doesn't have the showy blooms of an echinacea and a milkweed, the colors that those blades of grass provide you throughout the full season more than make up for not having the showy.
Oh yeah,
the showy pink ray flower that an echinacea has. And Matt mentioned these purples and blues and reds throughout the growing season, but they're almost like metallic, iridescent, the way they shine, and then it moves into fall and it turns red. And then in the winter, just like I was saying, driving down the freeway, it's so easy to spot because it turns that nice like straw color, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a coppery straw. I don't know. It's almost got like, I don't know. It's hard to explain.
It's colorful in all seasons.
Yeah.
So that's a really great grass. And, it's wind pollinated, so you don't necessarily think of the bees, but there's so many native insects that rely on it for, nesting habitat and food source. So it's not always about a bee on a flower with pollen.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than just the bees. I think when we think about what can we plant? Oh, pollinators. Well, birds are another thing, or insects, all different types of insects, but even like ground nesting areas for like squirrels and rabbits and things like that. So, little blue stem is one that I love for sure. And unlike turf grasses, these native grasses just put on some deep roots. So when I talked about erosion control, like these things will hold soil together. And again, like the stored carbon that they put back into the ground, when we talk about Earth Day, it's more than just the birds and the bees, but it's also like, what can we plant and what can we do to help air pollution, and groundwater and different things like this. And I think that there's a lot of native grasses that fit that bill. Little bluestem was one that I put on there because I think it works into ornamental horticulture better than some of the others. But so that's that.
It does work into ornamental horticulture, and it's a clumping.
Yeah,
it's more of a clumping grass. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I mean, 3 to 4 foot tall.
I like to plant groupings of them to create that mass effect.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to just like colonize an area if you plant one.
No,
you can plant one, but it's very effective if you plant a grouping like 3, 5, 7, something like that.
I think 1.5 to 2 foot wide, and depending on the cultivar, anywhere from 2 to 4 foot tall on the little blue stem is about all you're going to get out of that grass, which is a relatively small perennial or grass, when we're talking about grasses. Mm-hmm. So yeah, cool. So that kind of does our list of plants for Earth Day.
I like that episode.
Yeah.
Did
you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Good deal. Does my dog keep farting?
This is number 2.
Well, that's
she
not
needs
bad.
to have a number 2.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Look at her. She's just chilling
she
over here.
She is cute, but like, Megan, if you're listening, I've got nothing on her. The smell of these things. Just keep that in mind next time you're mad at me for farting.
Yeah. Cool, peeps. So that does it for our Earth Day episode. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope that you got something out of this, and maybe next Earth Day when you're looking for something to go out and plant in your landscape or in the wooded area behind your house or something, you take some of these plants we talked about into consideration and get them planted in the ground.
So happy Earth Day. Happy birthday to Taylor once again.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right. Well, that does it for us. Until next week, people.
We love you times infinity plus 2.
Harder. I'm Matt.
I'm Tim.
Bye-bye.
Bye.